Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Balcony, and this is the place and the space where we can all come out to express the things that make you go, Okay, and that's here on my channel, Balcony's Alchemy. Okay, now come hella high water, y'all, alchemists. I said I was gonna put out this content, baby. Okay, so my apologies as well. Your girl is in the back trying to formulate some better things with this sound quality, but I had to get this one off, alchemist. I had to get this one off, and that is as the galvanization continues, we got to talk about the Charlie Kirk situation. All right. Now, Charlie Kirk, this case has taken the nation by storm. I didn't even know who Homeboy was like 3 weeks ago, right? But nonetheless, we were hit with this. So I had to hit back as well with a few things that I've noticed about the case that have not been mentioned before. All right. Some things we're going to talk about that, of course, obvious. But for me, it's the timing. Okay. It's the timing for me. The date of this event, as it relates to being very close to some other significant dates, we're definitely going to get into that as well as talk about the similarities between the Charlie Kirk situation and the Luigi Mangione case, right? Because they galvanizing the shit out of us, right? We definitely got to talk about Godfather, Mr. Luigi Galvani himself, all right? And then we're going to get into the Jimmy Kimmel effect, okay? Hey, Jimmy Kimmel, got your gig back. Good for you, bro. I don't know about the other professors and folks that they fired, but they gave him his job back. Shout out. Okay. Then finally, we're going to talk about the Turning Point USA. It was held on September the 21st. We got to get into that as well because that day had a lot of significance this year as well, right? So that's pretty much the agenda, guys. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and wish ourselves. Let me be a good host. Let me be a good host. Happy autumn, everybody. Okay, happy autumn. I hope it's a great, great season. I hope it's a great season for everybody, right? And also to the Libras, go Libra. It's your birthday. Okay, happy birthday to all of the Libra gang. Now I have a Libra moon. I got some friends that are Libras. My son is a Libra, and very interestingly enough, my son, my baby cousin, and my one of my uncles, they all have the same birthday in Libra season, right? So Libra energy is definitely a vibe, okay? And I'm definitely hoping that as we enter this vibe, balance, truth, and justice, okay, will be a theme because right now I feel like the wool is trying to be pulled over our eyes with the lies, okay? Since that word wants to just pop out of my mouth, right? But without further ado, y'all, I don't want to keep us here too long. I got a lot of shit to go over, so I'm gonna go ahead and kick it. We'll get the good discussion started about the timing, as I mentioned before, and I also want to kind of combine that as well with the Luigi Mangione case, right? Now, there's some very significant things and correlations and similarities. I've already seen the media kind of compare these two cases as well. But let's time travel, right? So back on December the 4th, yep, December 4th, 2024, the nation was shocked when vigilante heartthrob Luigi Mangione offed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, right? Now, this was about 9 months ago, right? Here we are in September, and the birthing of a copycat killing happened with the Charlie Kirk situation, right? That occurred on September the 10th. Now let's get into some of the similarities of the case, okay? Both Mangione case and the Kirk case, the motives were centered around ideology, and there were also these narratives as well of martyrdom, right? Now, and I got the little picture of the lady birthing and stuff like that because I just kind of feel like it was just really copycat to me, right? I was like, even down to the fact, right? Bro wrote the stuff on the bullets. Okay, so let's talk about it. Another similarity. Mangione wrote Defend, Deny, Depose on poetically, right? The poetic justice. He poetically wrote this on the bullets that were used to take out Brian Thompson, okay, while Tyler Robinson, alleged assailant of Charlie Kirk, wrote lyrics from Oh Bella Ciao. Now, this is a song, an Italian song about fascism, and I think it was written in like the early 1900s, right? So even the psychology was very similar, okay? Both both of the cases serve to galvanize people. Now, I got the little guy with the strings over here, right? Because these guys knew what they were doing when they did this, right? If I believe all of the things that they say about it. But before I do that and lay down the evidence, let us go ahead and establish what galvanizing is, because I had to learn, baby. When you galvanize people, essentially you stimulate or shock them. You make them feel a certain way, whether that is excited, angry, happy. but you shock them in order to have them act out or take a particular action. Okay. Now, I am going to tell you about a scenario that I had with a certain sad celebrity, and she galvanized the shit out of me, y'all. Now, I was at a concert of the celebrities, right? And at a certain point, the ambiance is set. It's nice, soothing music. The lights are dim, okay? They playing the familiar songs of my heart, all right? And then me and my homeboy went to the show together. So we started to, at this point of the show, see the images of these cute little African kids, right? And they're playing and they're smiling. Some of them are sickly, but it's very much third world Africa, right? Now, as they're strumming the music of my soul, okay, my humanity course was hit. Because old girl and her voice was like, if you want to know how you can help the children, text 55566 to this number and say help. All right. So, of course, I'm in a vulnerable state. And just naturally, who doesn't want to help vulnerable children, right? I should say this. I'm in a rather emotional state, okay? And who doesn't want to help vulnerable children? So, of course, I text 55566 and I write out help because I want to know what I can do. Then all of a sudden, I get a reply that says, thank you for your $10 donation. And me and the homeboy doing it at the same time. So we simultaneously looking at each other like, what? And then everybody else in the audience has this crescendo effect of like, what? And this bitch fades to black. I kid you not, with her background dancers coming up on the stage. I said, this clever heifer just got us, okay? Now, I didn't know what happened to me at the time, but I was totally galvanized, okay? I wasn't in that understanding of how people's minds work. And she's actually an Aquarius, so she definitely gets the whole humanitarian gig, right? That basically was the motivation for us to act the way that we act, and she played on it. You know what I'm saying? Good ass job, Alicia. Moving on. Let's talk about these two and how they galvanize people, right? Um, Kirk's situation, Mangione's situation, both very much also serve to galvanize people, but not just to go in their pockets, right? These two situations show to galvanize people in a very divisive manner, okay? Now, when it came to the Mangione situation, of course, humanity, we all know red rum is wrong, okay? However, corporate greed might be even wronger, okay? But basically, his actions were trying to we're motivated to help us question morality in a sense, right? I mean, it's wrong to kill somebody, right? But it's also wrong as well to take advantage of someone. And that was basically the combination, the conversation. I said combination. Yeah, that was the combination or conversation that was around the whole event, and it divided a whole lot of people, right? Plus, he fine as hell, so he was going to have support on his side. Anyway, now moving forward, right, let's talk about the Charlie Kirk situation. The Kirk matter also galvanized people in a very divisive way as well, but this was more in the regards of the freedom of our speech, right? Now, Charlie Kirk is on wax saying some very shady, insulting things, triggered a lot of people emotionally. And he's also on wax being very dismissive about gun violence, right? Ultimately he would be taken out because of gun violence. Okay, so there's a lot of people who were just non-sympathetic. A lot of people hadn't even heard of bro, right? So I think that was part of the response, right? But the more the media kept feeding the story, people was like, all right, well, fuck it, he get what he deserved. Like, ain't nobody told him to do all that. Ain't nobody told him to say all that, right? And he got what he got. Now, in divisiveness as the theme of the galvanization, right? There are his supporters, of course, okay? Now they see bro as a martyr, all right? They see him as somebody who confidently and with his conviction said what he needed to say. And those who relish in his misfortune should ultimately be silenced, all right? And that's when we have the conversation of censorship that definitely comes up. It's definitely going to keep coming up, I believe, as well. Nonetheless, though, these two successfully and their actions. And I apologize. I'm going to get into like why I say these two, but I should say these two cases successfully galvanize the public, right? Now, since we're talking about galvanization, we got to talk about the Godfather OG, Mr. Luigi Galvani, okay? Now, I had to do some research, okay? And from the archives, I got a chance to get to know a little bit more about him, and he's kind of fascinating, okay? Now, Luigi Galvani is a scientist, or was a scientist. He lived around the 1700s, and he grew his fame once he discovered electrical shock could cause the limbs of dead frogs to move, right? Now, this is prior to our understanding of the nervous system, but basically, this was just fascinating shit at the time. However, he gained notoriety when he claimed that the discovery proved life was in the fluid in the body, basically, right? And if he could contain this said life fluid, right, he would actually be able to bring these dead animals back to life. Now, that's some crazy shit, okay? A lot of people were looking, especially his peers, they were looking at him like a grifter, like, bro, you know good and damn well you ain't bringing no dead frogs that's cut in half, by the way, back to life, right? Or there's no such thing as a life fluid. And it's even said that Galvani himself truly did not believe in this idea, okay? But you know, you got to get a coin, right? And ultimately, he sold the ideal of bringing things back to life as a way of stimulating that very creepy, macabre, and fascinated with like weird off-ball shit that the human psyche has, right? You think about it. If you see a crash on the road, a lot of us are just kind of inclined to look, right? Even with Charlie Kirk's video, I didn't watch his assassination, right? But a lot of people did, and I kind of understood why, right? I just wasn't, it did not for me, not for me, not my cup of tea, okay? But nonetheless, Galvani, okay, he understood and he knew that the shock and awe of it all would inquire, or I guess would require the people to respond, okay? Now, whether he got a response of curious spectators who were willing to pay for a seat at his table to see his show, right? Or if he just got folks mad, okay? And press is still, bad press is still good press, I guess, right? Because those who were not supportive of him basically said, yo, even if you can bring back a dead frog, should you, bro? Okay? Don't be out here playing God like that, right? And that also brings up the whole mad scientist trope that we come later on to see in a lot of Hollywood and a lot of different movies as well. In fact, oh boy, inspired the story of Frankenstein, okay, with the whole electricity and bringing it back, it's alive and all that shit, right? And then the mad scientist trope as well. This is the Godfather OG of that, okay? And another interesting coincidence is Frankenstein remake is going to be releasing later on this fall, all right? So there's a lot of things that are going on with Luigi Galvani, as well as how Luigi Galvani connects to both the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as well as the actions Luigi Mangione took when he decided to take out the CEO. Let's run it, okay? Now, Luigi Mangione off Ben Thompson, December the 4th, right? The same day Luigi Galvani dies, okay? Same name, and he decided to act out on the same day bro died, right? Now let's look at the Charlie Kirk matter, okay? Charlie Kirk is gunned down on September 10th, which is just the day after Luigi Galvani's birthday. However, there's a book that was actually published on September the 9th that talks about the shooting of Charlie Kirk, right? Now, they want to say it was just a website bug, but I don't know. It just kind of gives that they were challenging our fucking like ability to think, right, with common sense, but also channeling and tapping into the energy of Luigi Galvani besides his method of galvanism, right? This was like a whole like thing about him, okay, on the low. Because when you think about it, right, 9 months after Ben Thompson has died, we have this incident that happens with Charlie Kirk, right? So that the nine energy, the birthing, we're also in the year 2025, breaks down to a year nine. September is the ninth month. And of course, Luigi died. Luigi Galvani, sorry, my apologies. He was born September the ninth, right? So there's a lot of energy with that nine, right? So but let's bring it back. Let's do a recap real quick, right? Because I know I said a lot and I don't want nothing to go over nobody's head, right? Mangione offs due December 4th, same date. Galvani dies December the 4th. And then you have Charlie Kirk, who was gunned down on September the 10th. Luigi Galvani's birthday is September the 9th. So September 9th, right? September 10th. Kirk is gunned down, and then 9/11, of course, right? As we remember the people who were fell victims then, okay? And I'll say this, I think even the, Kirk situation actually overshadowed the victims and the memorials that we typically would have for 9/11 victims, okay? Now, with all that being said, I know your girl ran down a lot, okay? If you got to pause or clutch your invisible purse, it's okay. I did the same thing, okay? But I just say all that to say, y'all, like sometimes life truly is a stage, right? Then there are other times where life is a fucking staged event, and this is just a curtain call, and we gotta pull back the curtains to see truly what's going back and on behind the scenes. And we're going to continue with these life as a staged event when we talk about September the 21st and the fact that Charlie Kirk's memorial was held on this day, right? Now, there was a couple interesting things that I took away from the memorial service, but before we get into that, let's talk about the fact that there was an eclipse on this date, right? So the eclipse occurred. A lot of different coincidences with that, right? um as well. And let me talk about this as well. So what happens on okay, so September the 21st is the last day of Mama Earth's hot girl summer, okay? And this day was also special as well because it was a solar eclipse. So for me, the memorial service being held on a Sunday was kind of different, but I was like, whatever, it's Sunday, right? I get it. But it was 5 hours. Bitch, why? Why? I'd have been to memorial services before. I mean, I was thinking too, maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours if like everybody got to all do their commentary after the whole ceremony, right? 5 hours. And I just happened to be online and I saw Night and Day Network streaming it, right? But the first hour, all they did was sing. They sang so damn much that I was questioning. I'm like, y'all, is this shit on loop? Like, because the songs just started to sound alike. It just went on and on and on and on. And I'm like, when are they going to talk about, bro? Right? So finally, when they did begin to talk about Charlie Kirk, there was a lot of talk about the Turning Point USA. Okay. So Turning Point USA happens on the same date of the eclipse, right? And Eclipse is all about transformation, closures, renewals, like rebirthing, right? Then I'm like, oh shit. Okay. Anyway, right? One other takeaway that I have before I move on to the other things that I want to present in this video is the responses that people were giving when it came to like Charlie Kirk. Like, I know Tyler Robinson is arrested, but I couldn't get over how many of the speakers were saying, like, we're not going to take this. We're going to fight. We're going to go to war. They're not going to do this. And I'm like, who the fuck is they? That's a strange ass pronoun when it's one dude, right? Like, is there something that I don't know? Like, maybe that is his pronouns. I don't know. He was in. Anyway, that ain't the conversation for the day. But I just thought that was very interesting because the psychology typically is once a person is caught, like, it's a terrible thing that they allege that happened to them, right? But once you catch the person, it just seems like the psychology naturally would be to say, I want this person prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And there was some mentionings that Trump said about that, but most everybody else kept saying how they're fighting and they're gonna fight and they're gonna fight. I'm like, who the fuck is his enemy? Because that's a strange thing too. But I'm gonna get into that in a little bit, right? But nonetheless, all these things occurred on as far as the memorial, right? Another suspicious thing that's kind of going on around this whole Charlie Kirk situation. So I'm just, I'm gonna go ahead and keep going. Let me do that. Let me go ahead and keep going with the presentation, y'all. Next on the list, we got to talk about Jimmy Kimmel, okay, in this effect, because Jimmy Kimmel has some things to say regarding, or I guess around the Charlie Kirk situation, and the Trump administration, maybe how it was handled. Nonetheless, they fired old boy, right? Now, he didn't got his job back, okay? However, they were firing principals, like, shit, the GM up the street got fired. I don't know. They were just firing everybody, it looked like. And they had a lot of commentators overall shaking in their boots, right? And the conversation of censorship began to come up, right? So that was another thing too that I'm like, I don't know, right? Very suspicious to me. But nonetheless, right, the powers that be, they took his time slot away, they gave it back to him, okay? And now people are still having conversations about censorship, okay? But this definitely felt like true galvanism to me, okay? Because the sensationalism, the real world problematic events, right? It just gave like, why do y'all want me to pay attention to this, right? So now I'm starting to think, or was this staged event, were these staged events, I should say, that were actually meant to resemble real scenarios in the world to get people to act a certain way? Because there's just too many fucking coincidences for this stuff. And again, y'all, life is a stage, I don't know. But it just felt like there was this energy of like, you gotta decide, you gotta pick a side, you gotta pick a side. What side are you picking? You gotta pick, I don't like that, okay? Nonetheless, though, right? I want to talk about some other things when it comes to social media and the news and how we've been played this trick about galvanizing our responses. And I'm going to take it back a little bit further to the whole 9/11 thing as well. Now, there are a lot of rumors about 9/11, um, as far as possibly being an inside job, right? You don't see that information. This is actually like the real first, like, I guess, conspiracy that I chased, because this happened when I was just graduating college. No, just graduating high school. My apologies. I was just graduating high school when 9/11 happened, right? So this changed the whole fucking world. Like, you couldn't fly the same no more. I was working at FedEx at the time, and FedEx was being fucking weird about shit, right? So there was a lot of things that were going on. But one of the things that happened was the Homeland Security Act, right? So 9/11 happened. And basically, this is what initiated the invasion of the Iraq War and the search for bin Laden, and also the weapons of mass destruction. Okay. So I was not as versed as, I am about life now. I actually thought, like, if this happened, right? Um, and these people were able to compromise us because of our freedoms to just talk, maybe they should be able to tap into the phone. Maybe they should be able to listen, right? So a lot of us kind of felt like that because we were galvanized to, right? That was some scary shit to think that a motherfucker could be sitting on you next to a plane, hijack it, and then all of a sudden y'all crashing out, right? Scary, scary thoughts. So the galvanization was based off the fears that people had, right? And a lot, and all that basically stirred up to ultimately give up many of the freedoms that we had under the Homeland Security Act, right? Now, also, it come to find out, Halliburton was owned by, I want to say, if not CEO or share member, Halliburton Company was Cheney's shit, right? Now, this was also an oil company. So being over in Iraq just served, to kill two birds with one stone, basically. The agendas for the government to have this Homeland Security Act, and Cheney made a whole lot of money there as well. And in fact, I remember because I had, not too long after that, right, I bought a whip, okay? And gas was like 135, then 145. And before you know it, like, we was paying like $2.50, like what we're paying now. And the shit happened within like 2 weeks. We were like, is it going to ever stop? And I want to say in some places it got up to like $4 or $5 at that time. And this is again around 2002, right? So in high school, I remember seeing gas for like 99 cents and shit, right? So a lot of things were happening as a result of this galvanized event as well, okay? So I say all that to say, ladies and gentlemen, galvanizing is a very real thing, okay? Simulating emotional responses to get people to act out is no new thing, okay? We can see it all the time in advertisements, right? You don't need a sports car to feel cool. However, if an ad can sell you on the ideal enough, you might just go ahead and sign on the dotted line for that car note, just so that you can feel cool, right? So understanding people's motivations and how they're going to act, is a definite thing. Okay. Now I wanted to go ahead and take it over here because I had to get in my astrology bag real quick, y'all. I don't want to keep us here too long, but I want to talk about how this shit truly works. Okay. Now I got a shot right here. We're talking about the fifth house and the 11th house when it comes to astrology, because there's a reason why they want us to be entertained and glued in so much to the bullshit. Like I said, half of the world didn't even fucking know about a Charlie Kirk before this incident. Okay. However, the media kept generating stories, kept generating timelines, kept showing up on timelines, and thus the influencers that you watch and follow ended up talking about. Hell, I'm over here talking about it, right? So these things serve to generate. Now, when the fifth house, this is the house of Leo, right? We know big Leo energy is the lion and roars, but it's also planetarily ruled by the sun. Now, the sun is a generator, okay? It grows shit, right? The sun grows strawberries and grapes and all that good stuff, all kind of berries for you. But if you shine the light on weeds, right, it's gonna grow that too. So, but it's our attention, right? So if you truly pay attention, it's really what you pay attention to that directs the future, okay? Because the more that you, for instance, the more fear that we had around 9/11, the more the future was impacted, right? And I even go to as far as to say, like, if we weren't afraid during that time when that happened in 2001 or 2, whenever the fuck that was, right, 20 years ago, if we weren't so afraid of all the shit that happened, right, this would be a whole different kind of America, right? Because nobody ever found weapons of fucking mass destruction. Okay. And in fact, we didn't even know what weapons of mass destruction were. That was like a new term that they introduced. We didn't know if it was like biological, chemical, like if the nigga was gonna spray some shit over that made everybody flatulent and stuff. And just, we didn't know what the mass destruction was gonna look like, right? But it played up on the fears, right? It generated that energy, and ultimately that generation came to be fulfillment for their agenda. And that's why you got to be careful with a lot of this shit. You know what I'm saying? You got to be careful with what you pay attention to, right? So I don't like to leave people with just the whole conspiracy bag or just the whole they're working to, up against us and all that stuff, right? We know that they've been doing that. There's nothing new that this devil does, right? Same old fucking tricks. However, we have a power, and that's our power. To be our own king, to be our own queens, to be like our own salvation for ourselves, right? And we don't have to constantly follow their narratives, especially when the narratives that they have are based off galvanizing, all right, and spinning stories, these coincidental stories that honestly come up straight out of a Lifetime movie, right? Maybe To Be Realness, okay, whatever you want to pick, right? But these are media programs and they are able to pull off a lot of broadcastings, right? Now, these could have been real events, right? But the fact that there are so many coincidences, at least, makes me feel like even if it was real, why is there so much attention being spun on it at this point when there's also real conversations about really $8 for fucking orange juice being too goddamn much, okay? And the fact that rent and housing is not affordable anymore, okay? There are some real things that are happening with people that far far way more important, sadly, than these situations. But this is not what the media wants to talk about. They want you upset. They want you mad. They want you triggered. They want you feeling less than. They want you in all kind of motherfucking emotional spaces so that you can serve to pay them attention. Okay? This is a dying political system. It never fucking worked. If you got to choose between A, dumb, and B, dumber, then just call you stupid. Okay, that's how I'm feeling because it never fucking works. But yet again, they want our participation in it because if we participated in it, we agree to it, right? That's just like that junk dumbass ex that you got. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to keep the door open so that you continue to follow. That's just like that fucking job that kind of dangles the carrot in front of your face, right? People want you to lock in and engage so they can keep that relationship going, so they can keep trajectory of what they got going, right? Because quiet as it's kept, if you just up and quit, right? Their job is a little bit more vulnerable, right? If we just all up and decided to say, like, fuck all this goofy shit, right? And just not give these motherfuckers any attention, like, what truly happens? I don't know, right? But I'm saying that in our astrology bag, there are some absolute things that are here for us. And not even just astrology, right? Just the spiritual bag, right? Like I said, the sun is here for us. It's going to generate what we pay attention to. So, do we want it to grow beautiful flowers, right? Do we want to live in a world where we watch our kids play? Do we want to be in a world that we see ourselves together versus divided over like you think this is right or you think that's wrong? What kind of world and future are we truly trying to build, right? Ultimately the choice of that road is going to be up to us, right? However, it's about the choices that we make. Okay. Now, I talked about the houses a little bit before when it comes to astrology. The fifth house and the 11th house, when you add those two houses together, then these are opposite houses, right? So whatever you pay attention to, it grows and it's basically your future in the 11th house. Now, when you take those numbers, 5 and 11, you get to 16, and that's going to reduce back to 7. So here we are in Libra season, right? The judges. And I feel like this is a bigger message from God, right? Because ultimately, how and what we generate in the future that we control ultimately is about our decision. It's our choice. It was our choice back then when the Homeland Security Act occurred, right? It was our choice way before when we decided to, like, it's our choice every time we decide to go and participate and vote in a system that we know is rigged. Okay. But it's also our choice as well to decide to choose healing, to pour into things that truly matter, Um, but ultimately, the freedoms that we have, the ability to enjoy life, right? It's being tampered with, and I don't like it. And so I just decided to go ahead and come up with some content to kind of expose some things that I have noticed as well. And we'll see. you know, maybe I am completely wrong and off my rocker, or maybe some of the things that I have do show a certain amount of validity. But ultimately, these are just things under the surface that I was able to put together. And I just wanted to bring it out, right? It's just an informative video. I don't know. You do what you want to do, boo. Okay. But that's all I got on the situation. I kept us at 30 minutes, y'all. Be nice to each other. Be kind to each other, okay? Don't let these motherfuckers play on your top and have you hating people that you don't even fucking know, that you've never had a conversation with, right? There are bigger fucking fish to fight. You know who I don't like right now? I don't like whoever's who's ever asking me to pay $8 for orange juice. In fact, I'm gonna quit buying this shit. I'm just gonna quit. If you're gonna keep doing this, I'm just gonna quit. Okay, until we can figure out another option, right? For those are my personal grievances, right? Like I said, and even still, right, I'm just actually gonna not try to walk in anger at all, right? Because what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna say if they gonna charge $8, my bank account gonna reflect that I got enough motherfucking money to buy so much goddamn orange juice. It ain't gonna matter, right? I'm talking about like that vibe. I'm talking about the vibe of like keeping control of your mental space so that you can truly attract the life that you want. Because I don't want to live a life where I'm scared or frustrated or fighting, and I don't even know who I'm fighting. I would rather live a life that's more purposeful, where yeah, that's it. That's all I got, y'all. I ain't gonna keep us here longer than this. Okay, thanks though for taking the time to hang out. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me. Y'all let me know too, like, what do you think about this information? Am I crazy? Do you feel like we're truly being galvanized as well? And even if so, like, why would the powers that be want to galvanize us, right? Is it that big of a deal, right? Or is this just the state of humanity and where we are? Lots of things to consider, lots of food for thought. And this is all I got. Y'all take care. Bye.